We're learning from billion-dollar projects how to stay in control of big numbers. This panel is joined by Jordan and Rolf. Jordan knows one thing or two about keeping projects on track and processes running smoothly. He's a co-founder of Bold Advice, a consultancy business helping companies in aviation, maritime, and energy become more efficient. Jordan's going to be sharing lots of practical tips on how you can optimize your processes and keep your projects under control. Definitely one you want to watch if you're particularly interested about process improvement. Jordan is joined by Rolf. You'll be interviewing him, and he's the CEO of Mobilexpense. And a really little fun fact, actually, is before he got into marketing, he built an expense management solution, which actually got replaced by Mobilexpense. Gentlemen, take it away. We're so excited to have you.
Good morning, Jordan. Thank you for joining me here.
Thank you so much.
We're going to dive into some different topics. We're going to talk about cost control, risk management, budgeting, big projects, big numbers. But first, what is Bold Advice and what brought you into this role?
So Bold Advice is a consultant company, and we do project controls for mainly big construction companies. We've been around for 2.5 years right now. And we do everything from scheduling, risk management on projects to actual cost control. And we have a lot of enthusiastic consultants that will gladly take give any advice.
Well, awesome. So let's start with a project, right? You do project control. At what moment are you introduced to a project? Is it always in the same moment, in the same phase, or is it before the budget is already created, or is it after?
It's never the same moment, never in the same phase. Ideally, at the start of a project idea, we want to be involved. Sadly, that never really happens. It only in some occasions you're at the very beginning, you have a say in the budget and that sort of stuff. But it's also very likely that you're on a project that is already going on for 1.5 years. This is the budget. We've already spent 75% of it. Make it happen that we're finishing on time and within the budget. Good luck. That happens.
So what do you do? If you didn't create the budget, you inherit a budget that's so far into the project. How do you make sense of where you are in that stage?
So one project I had this exact situation. And the team was not really, they didn't know if they were going to finish on budget, and they had no real overview. And what I typically do in that situation is just go back to the start. And that's a tedious process of just, okay, so this is my budget, and let's figure out what we actually spend. And that entails a lot of diving in paperwork. What's my actual contract? Okay, we got a contract here, so we spent that money. How much did we spend on that contract? How many changes do we have? And just make sure that you build a cost report that is solid, that you can trust, that your project manager trusts, that your client will trust. And at that point, you have a moment in time, hey, this is where we are right now. What do we need to get done to get that to that point that we're finishing this project? How much money do we need? How much can we value engineer? It's a process. It's a fun process, though.
You mentioned paperwork there. Are we talking about real paperwork, or is it digital paper?
Oh, sometimes it's actual paperwork.
Tell me, give me an example.
So I'm not going to name clients or anything, but it did happen that we had a side office, and in its side office, the project was already going on for a couple of years, and the company had a statement that you needed actual paper for an invoice. You need the printed out invoice that needed to be signed by actual people with a wet signature. And it needed to be saved for at least 5 to 10 years. So that's a container full of paperwork. And
container?
Yes. Yeah, one of those large shipping containers full of paper.
So what do you do then?
Sit down, brew a pot of coffee, and just go through the paperwork.
And when is the moment that you think, okay, this is a project that I accept also? Because I'm going to assume this is an extreme example.
Yes.
But there is a moment that you decide, okay, this is a project that I can support. But maybe on the other side of this, question is also the question: does it ever happen that you uncover something and that you say, okay, I'm not going to do this project. You need to find someone else for this.
I never had that. So typically, when a client asks me for help, I'll just do my best to help that client and provide the insight that they need for that. And it could be your project is going to be way over budget. At this rate, we're going to spend all the money, or everything has been spent. That's valid information that they need for those projects. Nobody has any benefit of me saying to a client, this is going to be fine. No, really, we're going to be fine. This is going to be okay. And then keep saying that mantra for months and months and months until it's too late. I'd rather go right down to the beginning. It's like, at this rate, we're not going to make it. We can do this, that, or whatever. And then you'll be fine. Or you need to scratch this part of the scope because we can't pay for it.
And who decides if you are allowed to go over budget and what that increase can be?
So what I like about project controls is we're an advisory position. So I advise my project manager to take a sort of action, and the project manager decides if he wants to go with that advice or not. And ultimately, it's communication. You want to talk to your project manager, to estimators, to your client, and just sit them down and talk numbers. Yeah. This is what is happening. My advice would be this, but ultimately, client decides.
So you accept a new project. You did the budgeting, or you're in the budgeting phase.
All right.
What, if we talk about risk management, what kind of process do you go through to analyze what the risks are for a project that you're about to embark on?
Well, ideally, you want to have a risk session. You can do a risk session on scheduling, but we're talking numbers right now. So you want to have your project manager in the room. You want to have a project controller like me in the room. But also estimating is very, it's one of the most important things. Let's say you want to build a new hangar or anything. You want to have somebody that knows actual prices, but also can do a forecast on what those prices are going to be in a couple of years, because we're talking projects that will take up to 5-7 years. Steel pricing can change drastically. We had one of my projects, we had a awning that needed to be built, and it was an awning worth $25K at the estimating stage. So that was in our budget. We valued engineered that awning out. Building has been built. The end client wanted to have that awning back. Steel prices changed. So that same awning that was $25K suddenly cost $250K.
How do you take that into account in the budget?
Yeah. So you always have contingency in your budget. So ideally you want to have roughly 10% contingency on your overall budget. And you cover those expenses. And in this case, we're already at the end of our project. So you know what's left. So basically, this is a situation that you can just decide, hey, you really need that. All right, so we got a list of day 2 items with stuff you ideally want. This is the amount of money that we have. You choose your priorities. And let's talk about those priorities. And do you really need this? Because the building is already operational at that stage. But yeah, if from an estimating perspective, that's a horrible situation.
And are you the only one owning the budget? Or is it a shared, are there other external project controllers also involved sometimes, or always?
It depends on what the role of you as a project controller is. You can work as an owner's representation. If you're the owner's representation, you're super close to the budget. But you always have a finance department that is overall responsible for the finances of that company. So as a project controller, you're just managing that part, that small part of the budget.
So what happens then if there's another piece of the project that is happening simultaneously, and there's another project controller there, and he's pushing forward an invoice to you because he says, this is not within my scope, it's in your scope, and so you think the same, what happens then?
Yeah, this happens. At Some projects you see that part of that scope is set to a different department, but I had situations that I'm responsible for the overall budget. However, parts of those budgets are for different different departments. And it does happen that I get an invoice through a system that is for something that is completely not mine. So the thing what you always need to do is be super aware of what your scope in the project is. What is your part? So if part of my scope is the overall part and everything technology-wise, digital technology, cameras and IP cables and all the good stuff is not mine, and I see an invoice coming through for just that, ask questions. Just ask questions to your project manager, to the project manager that handles that side of the scope. Have meetings with people. Just interact. Don't just sit down at your computer and accepting invoices or declining invoices.
So what happens? I can imagine you see many invoices
Yes.
on a daily basis. There's probably also some invoices that raise an eyebrow and that, you know, you want to know, why are you putting this on the project?
Yeah.
What happens then, and if there's intentional actions and maybe unintentionally that someone thinks this belongs to the project, this belongs within the scope of this piece of the project, but there's also the intentional, we can call it fraudulous, but there's also the intentional invoice that they definitely know it's not part of it.
Yeah.
You're an external hired by by your client, of course. So how do you handle that if the client says, you know, approve it, it's okay, but you don't think it's okay?
So that's always a tricky situation. If something really feels fraudulent, if you get an invoice that has 16 Rolexes on it, don't sign.
That sounds like one too many Rolexes.
Just don't sign. If there's weird,
what do they say if you ask them? You
luckily
know,
I never had that situation though.
Okay.
But so let's say there's power tools on the invoice. There's iPads, computers, that sort of stuff. I would always openly first ask the questions, right? Ask questions to the contractor that's sending your invoice. Hey, why is this connected to the project? And according to the rules and regulations that we have, you're either allowed to do this or you're not allowed to do it. Why you're doing it is going to be part of the company after this project is finished. And then take your findings and talk to your client and to your project managers. Okay, this is what they're doing. Be aware of this fact. Are you okay with this or not? If the client ultimately is okay with it, they're the ones that are paying for the project. As long as it's not fraudulent and your signature is the only signature that's on it, I would say defer from signing. If the client is okay with certain expenses to be paid, sure, that's out of your control.
I know that you have international experience here, working in Europe, working in the US. Yeah. Is there any specific differences that you notice in the way that projects are being handled, the way that budgets are handled?
Oh yeah, for sure. One of the there's always cultural differences that you need to take in account. So I am a very blunt person. I will not hesitate to say no to somebody. And at first in the US, I did that as well. That's not what we're doing. Oh, and I got hit with that. There's a lot of people that don't like that. So in the US, at least some parts of the US, there's you just need to do what we're asking you to do. And that can be difficult, but you can still do your job properly while doing what they're asking to do.
Let's move to the billion-dollar project topic.
All right.
Right. I'm going to assume that not all of your projects are billion-dollar projects. So talk me through a billion-dollar project. How, I mean, does it scare you at all? I mean, it's such a big number.
At the beginning of my career, that was scary because those are large numbers. But once you are actually participating in a project like that, you're not alone. There's no way, there's some people are responsible for that billion-dollar project, but typically the project controller is not one of them. the one fun part about those massive projects and programs is you're with a team of project controllers. You have peers that you can ask questions to, and that's one thing that I always like to advocate for is talk to each other, communicate. I ask everybody, hey, is this still good what we're doing? I think that this is the best solution, but do you think that this is the best solution? That's what I like about the bigger projects. But the type of work that you're actually doing is not that different from the smaller projects. And a big project for some companies, or small project for some companies, is a very big project for other companies. So I always like to go open-ended to those meetings.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the small type of projects that you do? Just to get a bit of a comparison.
The smallest that I did, I think the smallest project that I did was as a project controller, but it was roughly 800K, something like that.
Okay.
And that's exchanging a pipeline in a petrochemical plant.
So what's the difference? What's the similarities between an 800K project that you control and a $1 billion euro one?
I would say similarities. Still, you need to do your job excellent. There's still going to be errors in invoices. You still need to calculate if everything is being done correctly. It's all human work typically, so errors can arise. Do your due diligence. That's a very slow word. Let's blame that on the internet connection.
I think this is a good bridge to a change management, people management question also. Big numbers. How do you make sure that other people involved in the project, the people spending the money, basically, you approve it, but there's other people that get the invoice, of course. How do you ensure that they act in a similar way that you do, that they care about these numbers?
And so we're talking about contractors sending me the invoice, right?
Yes.
What I always like to do on my projects is sit down with that contractor and with their invoicing team, which is typically, you got a construction manager on that side, you got estimators, you got a project controls person as well, and finance and a project manager. And I like to sit down in a meeting and just show them what I mean, what I need for an invoice. What I really like for typical invoices is have everything be organized in there. This is the topic, this is what you're invoicing, this is your contract value, this is your current contract status, this is what you previously invoiced. Then the follow-up page, a breakdown of what you're invoicing. I really like people sending me invoices for $2.5 million on just a piece of paper, but I need a little bit more information. It's a lot of money. It's not on my bank account. I want to know why you're invoicing me that amount, instead of, I got very nice blue eyes, here's an invoice for $2.5 million.
So in a sense, it doesn't matter what the size of the invoice is.
Not at all.
Does it matter in a more physical sense what the size of the invoice is? I can imagine you get invoices that are a single page and some that are a bit longer.
It shouldn't. It's not your money, but it's still real money. There's actually a transaction. There's people's mortgages depending on that money, however small, however big it may be. So that's why I always want to check if everything is correct, because it's just real money. I don't mind if it's $1,000 invoice or a $10 million invoice. Those numbers just need to be real, and that's why I check and vet and do my due diligence.
So how do you? There's probably a lot of finance managers in the audience as well, and when you hire people for your own company, you want to know that they behave in that way as well, right? You want to know. You cannot control everything that they do always.
No.
You need to be able to trust them. How do you make sure that you hire the right person for this?
That's a very difficult question, but one of the keywords that you mentioned is trust. And that's a gut feeling that you have when talking to somebody that we can trust this person to handle finances. I always like people being honest. I rather have somebody be honest to me and say, I don't know this, can you please explain it? And then use that information instead of somebody that is bluffing their way through, because that always, we always know, especially with years of experience in your career, you will pick out the people that try to finagle their way out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna ask a very dumb dumb question. Does the money that you deal with, does it ever feel like monopoly money?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I can understand that people feel that way because you get blindsided by large numbers. But it's all large. Oh, it's only 50K that we're missing here, and it's not only 50K you're missing. That's proper money that can be used somewhere else, and that's money that you can use to hire somebody else to help grow the company, for example. And that's the mindset that I always try to have when working on my projects.
Is it difficult to keep that mindset?
I don't think so. As long as you keep, that's a difficult question. I don't think it's difficult. It comes with a sort of quality that you bring to your job. That's something that you just do. That needs to be part of you. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about technology.
Okay.
When do you think technology plays a part in the work that you do? Does it play a part at all?
It does. And you see technology becoming more of a thing with the past year. So years ago, invoices needed to be signed with a wet signature for some companies. You see right now that digitalized. So first, companies like DocuSign got real into to replace that signature. And right now you slowly see invoicing systems coming in place that you need to upload your invoice into. And that can be really helpful. But to make the change, especially in large companies, is always difficult.
Do you think there's a risk that people become too dependent on technology?
There's always a risk. Yeah, I would always, but that's just me, and maybe I'm going to be phased out eventually by technology, but there always should be a human check in there, just a sanity check.
And Mobilexpense is an expense management company, of course. So what about in those projects that you do? There's a definite difference between invoicing invoices and handling expenses. Is it part of the project?
It's typically a very large part, especially in construction projects on that side. You get a lot of expenses from your contractors.
And what kind of expenses?
So those vary from Uber rides to from the client office to your own office, dinners. But also for general contractors, power tools and everything that they can try to muster up. We've seen a lot on those things. So those invoices can be really large in backup. I had invoices with 150 pages of backup and expenses. And not all of them are large backup numbers.
Okay, but let's dive into that. 150 pages,
Yeah.
right? You have to check it line by line.
Yes.
I can imagine that sometimes people put something in there that's a little bit vague.
We had fun stuff.
Can you share one fun stuff?
Humidifiers. Humidifiers are invoices that the clearly personal stuff that's on there. Apart from the various dinner parties that we have, we had iPads, we had power tools, TVs, all stuff that you normally don't really see on a construction site.
I can imagine that a power tool that they use it for the project.
Yes.
So why is that a problem that they expense?
Well, okay. The thing about that is who owns the power tool, right? If that tool, if that drill is going to stay for the client, sure, expense it because it's a client property right now. But that's typically not the case. So people expense it. I think one of the fun parts was I had a car being monthly reimbursed on a project. That was a weird one. So I had the monthly finance payments were somewhere in that invoice.
What was the reasoning for them to?
They needed to drive to site.
Okay.
That was the reasoning. And this was in a case that I was late on a project. So there's not really a lot you can do about it unless but just slowly making sure that fades out of the contract. But yeah, that's weird stuff.
Yeah, if the previous project controller approved something,
yeah, or
can you cannot change that? I
no,
imagine.
so that's so it sets a precedent basically for future invoices. And that's why I sit down with my contractors just to explain really well what I expect them to send me. And the first 6 months typically is a lot of declining invoices, and this is not up to agreement. This needs to be different. And if you do that constantly, then slowly you start to notice how you want to work together, and then it becomes easier. And then it becomes easier for me to check that invoice as well.
Does it happen that you have a couple of conversations with a supplier, but that you don't feel that there's really a trust that you can have in the supplier? What do you do then?
That's no trust in your supplier is very difficult, especially once you're far into a project. In some cases, sometimes you have a supplier that's untrustworthy, that's trying to finagle your way to just get more into the contract, ump their changes with a lot of stuff that, you're delaying 2 months though. We need a lot more personnel to pay for that. And at that point, your hands are basically tied. So at the beginning, really try to vet your contractors. Don't just go blindly for the lowest bidder. Go for previous work that was good, non-blacklisted contractors, etc.
How many contractors do you generally deal with? With some of the bigger projects also?
So it depends. You can have anywhere from 4 contractors on a smaller job to 30, 40 contractors at the same time for the bigger jobs.
And you have one-on-one conversations with all of them to make sure that they follow your rules.
I try
Can
to
put it like that?
So you got your big ticket item. So you always have a general contractor, which is typically around 60-70% of your budget. So you really want to nail that one down because that's your big ticket item. Architect, same story. It's a lot of work. And then you got your smaller contractors, and that varies because those typically invoice either in 1 or 2 invoices their complete contract amount. So that's easier.
So I want to change gears a little bit. I have a couple of hot takes here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, you can only say yes or no, and if it's really burning in your soul, then
it will.
You can say a little bit more about it. Yes or no?
Sure.
Most financial risks in projects are predictable and preventable.
Yes. Everything's going to burn. Yes.
Yes or no? Fraud is an inevitable risk in project financial management.
I want to say no.
Why?
You should always be able to prevent fraud. That's the human take. You should vet everything. You should. Yeah, no, that one goes dear to me.
Yes or no? Finance professionals are becoming too dependent on automated tools.
Not yet. No, not yet.
Yes or no? Leadership involvement has minimal impact on the financial success of projects.
No.
How is leadership at some of those firms that you work with involved?
So leadership is ultimately responsible for the budget. We just tell the story to them. It's like this is what you're getting. If you choose this is most likely going to be the outcome. You tell us how to proceed. They're the final signature.
Yes or no? Technology solutions have replaced the need for skilled financial professionals in project management.
Luckily, not yet.
Do you expect it will change?
Somewhere down the line, it will. I no doubt about it. But the roles of financial controllers is just going to change.
Okay, last one.
All right.
Yes or no? Financial controls are often bypassed to meet project deadlines.
No.
Last question. What kind of advice do you have to people that are interested in this industry and working in a financial job like you're doing?
If you start working in a financial job like this, is don't be scared to ask questions. If you don't know something, don't spend hours and then to try to figure it out on your own. Try to read the various websites that's around. There's people with skills around you. Just ask the questions. That's okay. Everybody likes to talk. Just be human and communicate.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you so much.